Hi, it's Olivia, and today I will be talking about the books that I read in the past month. I did have a live stream the other day for this, but upon uploading it, I ran into technical issues, and I was kind of nervous while doing that, so I don't feel like I gave the books justice, and I still wanted to share my thoughts on these books. And before I go forward, I wanted to mention two things. The first being that if you have time to watch my video right now, you also have time to check out the resources that I will provide in the description to support the Black Lives Matter movement. It's as simple as that. And second, there was something I mentioned in my last video towards the end, and because it was towards the end, I'm sure there's plenty of people who did not see it because people don't often watch videos from beginning to end. But I had mentioned that if you open up another tab in Google and search cute hairstyles, I said, how long are you going to be scrolling until you come across a black person? Because that for me is a great example of how the default in so many things is white. If you do not specify black or some other person of color, the default is always white with that Google search, with YouTube, with the books that you're presented when you walk into a bookstore. The way I see it, it is on you if you accept the default, which is very clearly white, or if you can go beyond that, if you keep scrolling, if you go out of your way sometimes to search for what's not immediately presented to you. I just wanted to emphasize that because I think it's important. So getting back to the books, I want to start with what I read for the Asian Readathon. I first read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. I haven't watched the show. I've seen some clips here and there, but I like the general idea of keeping things that spark joy and basically getting rid of the things that don't. And also another big takeaway for me with this was to not do cleaning in, to not do it a little bit here, a little bit there, do it all at once. And so I am planning to schedule a day where I do kind of a deep clean. But while there are some things that I thought were nice, overall I can't say I cared for a lot of these suggestions, and I don't know if it's because I'm just overly skeptical, but there's a lot of big claims that she was making with nothing to really back up what she was saying. Some of the things just seemed a little far-fetched for me, and some of the advice too was a little, I wouldn't take that advice. But like I said, I like that main idea of keeping what sparks joy. Other book that I read was Love from A to Z by S.K. Ali, and I adored this book, and I am so happy I finally read it. When I saw the challenge or read a book that's been recommended, I knew instantly this was going to be my choice. Saajid from Books Are My Social Life has recommended this far and wide, and for good reason. There was so much to love from this story, from the characters to the plot, the setting, and how unafraid it is to tackle subjects like Islamophobia and some other issues. And I love our main character. Our main characters, Adam and Zainab. Adam is a bit more reserved, and Zainab is definitely very passionate about seeing justice in the world, and she is very rightfully angry, and it's on her. She gets suspended from school, and basically that kind of gives her an extended spring break, which she is taking in Qatar, and it's while traveling to Qatar that she meets Adam, and how their lives overlap is basically the story. But their respect for each other, their communication, just I love so much about this. I do have a criticism, which is it's something about the writing. I can't say it was my favorite, and there's also moments where there would be text messages or emails, and I don't know if it was from the format that I was reading. I was reading an ebook from Scribd, but sometimes I could not tell when it switched over to a text message being read or typed or something. Like I couldn't tell if it was something being said in the character's head or if it was a text message or an email. That kept happening, and it was kind of irritating. But aside from that, I really enjoyed this one. And I also read Chemistry by Wai-Kee Wang, and let me talk about the writing for this one first because it's very different. There's no chapters, and there's also no quotation marks in this book. So you know how dialogue normally has quotation marks? There's none of that in here. A lot of it is our main character's internal monologue and memories and her emotions and experiences with her relationship. But basically, our main character is several years into a PhD program, and her boyfriend has just proposed to her, which she has very mixed feelings about. She's just under a lot of pressure also from her parents, who are Chinese immigrants, and feeling the need to be successful, and you know, her mixed emotions with her relationship. It was very interesting to read, and I like the little science-y tidbits throughout as well. but I can't decide how much I liked it. I really can't. I've been thinking about that one for a minute, and I'm not sure, because I think it's the ending that was kind of just wasn't doing much for me, but it was certainly an interesting read. Those are the only books that I got around to for the Asian Readathon. There were several others I wanted to read, but I should also mention you do not have to wait for a specific Heritage Month to read by authors of color, so it's not like those books are going away. I definitely still plan to read them. Some of the ones I wanted to read were The Poppy War and, dang, I forgot the name. There's this other middle grade book. And I also read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, which I already have a review for, so I'm not really going to say much about this. But overall, I didn't think it was all that entertaining. It is very interesting, and I keep thinking about it though. And I also read The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I mentioned this one in my last video, but this book, I loved it. And the thing is, I didn't finish it in one sitting. This took me a while to get through, specifically the first 100 or so pages, because you're thrown in without much context. The writing is very different, the perspective it's written in, but it's so unique. I could never really predict where the story was going. It just felt so in its own world. And on page 150 and 51, there is something that the author does that I just thought was so cool. It's some of my favorite writing that I've ever read. The last book that I read was The Four Agreements by Miguel, Ruiz, and this is a very short read. I read it in, I think, 2.5 hours, and it's what it says, the Four Agreements, and they're really for how to transform some of your beliefs, some of your self-limiting beliefs, and it comes from Toltec wisdom. And I don't know, maybe I read it too quick or something, because it didn't resonate that deeply with me. There was some nuggets of wisdom in there, but it just overall didn't really do much for me. I think I'm in the minority for this though, because it is a very popular and loved book. So if you've read it, I'd love to know your thoughts. And my battery is going to die any second, so I'm going to end this here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.